Hello, everyone. I'm going on live 1 minute before our schedule. If you can see me, please say hello so I'll know that you're there. This might be taking a while, so I'll wait for everyone. There was Deo. Deo said that he hopes he can join. So if you're here, please just say hi and let me know which among the topics that I mentioned are of most interest to you. Okay, we have several topics. I had 5 and more. So Christine, I hope you can make it. All right. So I'll start now with this FB Live. I thought I would do the weekly roundup because it would give you a better idea on what it's like in the life of a virtual assistant. All right. So I hope everyone is well. How are you? If you're watching right now, please type in the comment section where you are. So I'll get started with my topics. No? So the first one that I'd like to share with you is how I supported my clients' events. So this particular event is a first for me because it was not a generic event like a birthday or a networking event, or it was not, say, it was not a training or a conference, but it was an event that was local to their country in Australia. Okay, so it's called Harmony Day. I've seen them do it before. I've just seen pictures, but I was not part of helping them plan it. But anyway, I was asked to come up with activities that they can do during this event. The, the, the employees in that company were made up of people from different ASEAN countries, Asian countries as well. So I had to think of activities that they will enjoy. So I researched about this and I found several great online resources. At first, I thought I would look into EA groups, executive assistant groups from Australia. But then what they know is very limited. Like, apparently, food sharing and hanging flags is a very popular option. But then we were looking for something else because this has been done before. So what I did was I widened my research and I looked for activities about inclusivity and celebrating diversity in the workplace. Now this was very helpful for me. I created a beautiful list of all these activities and some reference videos to help my client like better understand how to do the activity or see how it's being done. So this is just the virtual side. If you're planning an event for someone, the virtual side that you can do is, come up with activities and things like that. Because in terms of executing, you still need someone on the ground to print the posters, for example, put them up, and then do the preparations in person or follow up with people in person. So yeah, and then if these activities did not work, I still don't have feedback from the client if they're still looking for more. If they say that this is not enough, they want something more specific to each culture, then what I'm going to do is to reach out to the translators that I've worked with, because I have a pool of translators who help me translate into local languages some of the documents at work, like policies and things like that. So yeah, just an example of what you can do. Initial research, and then if you need to go deeper, then you do that. Tap your network if you need to. So the other thing that I did for that activity, for that task, was to create a poster for them. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm not familiar with that event. It's called Harmony Day, and essentially it's a celebration of different cultures. So what I did was yeah, I started looking for designs, but it's very limited. So if you are going to do this, what is your go-to app for creating posters? Before Canva was available, I would go to PowerPoint presentation. But for some people who are, graphic artists, they could use Adobe, but I'm not a graphic artist, so I just use Canva because they have templates there. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. Some of you have already played with it. So it's very helpful. I used one of their templates for Harmony Day. And what I did was I submitted two drafts of posters. One draft is corporate, and the other draft is more aligned to the theme. So Harmony Day uses the color orange, and the most popular thing that Australians do apparently is to share food. So that's what's on that poster. But my client went with a corporate one, and the picture on that is people holding different flags. So that's what she went with. Right, so that's another learning. When you're asked to do a poster, submit an alternative so that they have something to choose from. And then don't consider it as a done deal. Even if you love your work, be open to comments. Ask them, please comment on this, or if you have any other suggestions in mind, be open to it. Okay, and then be ready to make iterations. So the other thing that I was busy with was preparing board packs and meeting minutes. So last week was my very first time ever to create board meeting minutes. It was also my very first time, of course, to attend a board meeting. I've handled board packs before, so my client would have to attend a board meeting, so I'm the one who reviews it and gives him a summary and marks it up. But I've never seated in a board meeting, so I was kind of nervous. So I did preparations ahead of time. So one thing I knew was that my client was going to use a board pack app. So they used BoardPro, and my client gave me access to that so I can have a look around and familiarize myself with it, so that I'll be comfortable to make entries on the app while the meeting is happening. And then I also read minutes of the previous board meeting, because I did not want to be lost when they're going to start about things. It's an industry that I've never been part of. So if there are any technical terms or issues that they will discuss, I wanted to make sure that I'm familiar with it and I can capture the essence of the discussion or decision. So that's fine with my client. And then I also, since I don't know the people who are sitting in the board, I looked them up on LinkedIn. So I created a document where I have their names and their photos and their position on the board. It's a small board, just 5 people, plus the CEO. So it was fairly easy for me to study their faces and memorize their names before the meeting. But when the meeting came, on LinkedIn, 2 of the members, their faces are different. But during the meeting, I could see them as they look alike. So that was quite a challenge for me to tell which one is this person and which one is the other person. But anyway, that went well. They were a nice bunch. They were kind. But the prep step that I missed was to ask my client how the Zoom is going to be set up, because I assumed that there's going to be a screen in the conference room, and that screen would have a camera, and that way I can see the entire table when people are talking, or at least she would have a laptop and there's a camera attached to it so that I can see everyone who's talking. But on the day of the board meeting, what happened was she dialed in using her phone. So as I was on Zoom on her phone, and when someone would talk, she would turn her phone like this. So of course it's not going to be steady, and sometimes 2 people would be talking at the same time. So that was a challenging part for me. And since it's a phone, there's no speaker, so I could barely hear what they're talking about. So that was the challenge for me. So lesson learned: if you are going to do board meeting minutes, check with your client how the tech setup is going to be, and suggest ways that will make it easy for you to listen or to hear what's being discussed, right? um, that's that. And then uh, just a little bit more on the app that they used. It was my first time to use an app. It's called BoardPro. It's a nice app. It was fairly easy to use because it allowed me to select boxes. There's a box for a note, a box for decisions, and a box for action items. So noting is this is just a record of what was discussed. In the agenda, they will say if this is just for noting, it's not a decision or anything. So you can select that and then just type in what was discussed essentially. And then the other box that you could use was an action item box. So if it's an action item, you have to be clear on what the assignment is, what the task is. So it has to be an action. You have to start with a verb, and then you have to indicate who that task is assigned to and when is the deadline. And then write a little bit about what the task is about. And then the third button there is the decision button. So this needs to capture what was decided on, who moved it, and who seconded the motion there. If you don't fill this up, the box won't save. Right. So the meeting it was initially planned for 5 hours, but we finished at I think 7 hours because it was a very long meeting. It was their first face-to-face meeting since the pandemic happened. So yeah, they were all happy to do it, but then I think they just got carried away with the discussions. But anyway, I finished the draft 24 hours after the meeting. And I was surprised because I was so keen to get it all perfectly. But then I was told that it was a great effort for me despite the tech challenges. And then she said that she would go into the app and edit as needed. So I wasn't expecting that. So from now on, I would know that my draft is really just a draft, and whoever is the person who organized it would be the one to make the final edits before it's passed on to the board for comment or approval. Yeah. And then I was asked by another client to create a board pack. This client did not have a board app. Okay, so I had to set it up in a Word document. So she sent me the agenda, and I just had to set it up with all the topics. So a board pack is basically a set of documents, a document or set of documents that contains all the relevant files for the board meeting. So this would include the agenda, the minutes of the previous meeting, any reports, any proposals, etc. So I used a Word document, and since I did not know how to create a board pack before, I looked at examples and I chose a design that looks very professional and corporate. So the elements I used there is creating a cover page and a table of contents. These elements are all available on Word. You can Google on YouTube how to create that. And the last two items is finding a talent for my client. So my client is looking for an email marketer or an email marketing strategist. I had difficulty. I was surprised that no one in my network had experience with this, so I went to Upwork. When looking for this role, I wanted someone who had 100% success rate because I did not want to recommend anyone who had problems completing projects. And the second thing is the rate. Of course, we will negotiate, but I did not want to haggle. Like, for me, it's like I want to respect their rates. So, for example, if our budget is $27 an hour, I wouldn't invite someone who charges $50, $65 an hour for the job. because that would be kind of insulting for them, especially if in their work history they've never charged anything lower. So that's that. The final thing that I'd like to share is learning from horrible mistakes. So last week, I could not believe that I was late for a discovery call. I had everything set up, and then just when I was about to log in, it was 2 minutes before the call. My backup internet was not working. I thought it was going to just work really well, but then the meeting was at 9 o'clock, and I was still struggling by 9:01. So I sent a message to the client, and by the time I've logged in, I think it was 9:04. I sent them a message, I'm on, see you. And I could see that they were typing on Upwork. It was a long time before they sent me the message, and I was like, okay, so maybe they don't want to meet with me anymore. But essentially, that's what happened. It's a German client, and they said that, sorry, but we don't want to work like this. So to me, I was so embarrassed because I've never been late to a discovery call. It was the very first time. I'm a stickler for deadlines and for times. I'm always early, but on this particular occasion, I just couldn't wrap my head around why did this happen. So I just sent my apology to them. There's no point in coming up with excuses. So I sent my apology to them. I told them what happened, and the client came back to me and said, I appreciate your message, and they told me that we really don't know why things happen, and she said we'll see. So it's a good note to end with. Of course, I didn't get the client, but it's a big learning for me. So I hope that you'll have the same, like when you have a mistake like that. Sometimes you feel like it's the end of the world, you lose your confidence, and like you feel like you'll never be able to do things well. It is going to be at the back of your head, nagging you all the time. But just raise up from that, pick yourself up, and just learn from it. So my learning from that is just improve your preparation. So if your meeting is at 9 o'clock, make sure you're in front of your computer with the internet working 15 minutes before. Yeah, don't go there 5 minutes before, because something can go wrong and you might not have enough time to troubleshoot. That's my learning from that. Yeah, if you've encountered something similar, please share that with us, because we're all humans. We make mistakes, and when we share our mistakes, people learn from it also. Okay, so those are the 5 things. The other things that I'd like to share with you is something about imposter syndrome and my self-confidence as a mother, as a parent. When my son was 2 years old, he's 18 now, but when my son was 2 years old, I did not feel like there is anything else that I could teach him, because he knew the colors, he knew the alphabet, he knew the numbers, he was into science and things like that. So I thought because I thought I was doing him disservice by not putting him to school, so I put him to school at the age of 2 years old. But I look back into this decision, and I realized that it was my mindset, the imposter syndrome mindset, that caused me to send my son too early to school. All he should have spent his time on was to play and enjoy his time with me and his dad, instead of going through the pressures of waking up early, hurrying up so he can get dressed and arrive to school on time. And then, of course, there's the homework, that there was a lot of tears about the homework. The difference between then and now is, now I'm confident that my child, I have a 2-year-old now, again, she can learn so many things from me. Not necessarily academic stuff, but independence, for example, on how she can eat her food, how she can make her food, how she can communicate confidently. I'm doing this to my toddler, who is currently 2 years old. So I don't intend to send her to preschool until she needs to, until it's required. Or I can even homeschool her, I don't know. But for now, I just want her to enjoy having her free time and exploring the world around her, and building her relationship with the people who love her. So this week is my 18-year-old's final exam. So he's 18 years old, he's first year college at De La Salle. And I presented to help him last week with his accounting and economic subjects. Um, so remember, I took up music in college, so I have no clue what economics and accounting is. But I've supported an executive as a VA for 5 years, and I've been exposed to board papers, and I'm aware of what business leaders are concerned with and how they make decisions. I've also taken up a bit of lessons on accounting. I do read newspapers about um, um, finance. So, my contribution to my son was to help him see these lessons from a real life point of view. Like, I'm a business person and I need to make decisions about my business. That's why these numbers are very important. You know where to put, you know what, if it's debit or credit, how to set these things up. I also learned in the process. So it was a good time spent with my son. The other thing that I contributed to him was because, of course, I could see along the way how he would study. So I made corrections on how he would study. I gave him feedback, and he learned them, like what techniques he can use so that he can to make his review more efficient. Like instead of writing down on using pen and paper, he would use Excel to make the calculation. So it's faster, he can reference the cell and things like that. And the other thing is organizing his time. So I taught him to use the calendar on his university's platform so he can see what time the exams are instead of having to look at his notebook. So he can see it in the calendar and he can allocate time for studying on the same calendar. So what's the difference between me as a mother and 15 years ago? It's that I'm more confident that I have skills and knowledge that I can offer to support my kids. So I know I cannot teach him calculus or thermodynamics, but I can use my earnings as a VA to afford him the tutors who are, the experts in those fields. So that's just a perspective that I wanted to offer to you because, what do you call this? That imposter syndrome is something that we have to deal with a lot. And sometimes we feel insecure whether we can do this or not, both at work and for our families. So, so those are all the things that I have to offer you. And then last week I also missed my run because I was supposed to run with my husband early morning. But when he saw that I was so fast asleep, usually I wake up first and then I wake him up. But last Sunday, he woke up first and he thought I needed to sleep. So I told him, no, wake me up and then I'll tell you if I want to go back to sleep or if I want to run. Because I'm serious about running with him on Sundays. It's like our date and it's also what I need for my health. There. So, are there any questions so far? Hi, Regina. Good evening. Sorry, I just saw your message. Thank you for tuning in. How are you? All right. So, just to wrap up, I gave you tips on how to come up with activities for events. If you're not familiar with it, research. Specifically when it comes to inclusivity and diversity, these are things that companies are now embracing. If we're not familiar with it, let's look it up. The other thing is coming up with 2 drafts for posters or any artwork so that your client can just choose between the 2 and then be open to receiving comment or feedback about your work, no matter how in love you are with your output. And then number 3 is, what's our number 3? Let me go back to our notes. Number 3 is on preparing board packs and board minutes. So this is new territory for me. So what I did was I researched and I practiced on the app. And then my lesson for this is to ask what the tech involved is aside from Zoom. Just to make sure that I'd be able to capture the minutes in a more efficient way. And then the number 4 is finding talent for your client. So aside from having the skills, my client was very specific in telling me, I need someone who is intelligent, who is fun, and proactive, because we are looking to work with this person on a long-term basis. So we want someone who, is aligned to our energy, who has a sense of humor. So if you know anyone who is an email marketing strategist, please let me know. And I'd be happy to set up an interview. What else? And learning from your mistakes. So my biggest takeaway from there is my process may not always work, so I have to make adjustments. So I have to improve it. So my process of logging in 15 minutes before, 5 minutes before did not work, so I have to improve it, and make sure that my internet connection and my main and my backup internet connection are going well. And so for other things, it's the imposter syndrome. It's really all the mindset. If you let your imposter syndrome eat you up, you can make decisions that you will regret. So for me, it was imposter syndrome, my lack of confidence as a mother, that I had knowledge to teach my 2-year-old. Can you imagine? I was so insecure. I didn't really need anything academic at that time. So now I'm raising my second child a different way, which is to teach her what I know, practical things, right? Confidence, and love, having fun. So, and then I've also had, because of experience, now I have more confidence on supporting my older son, my older child, who is 18 years old, and sharing what I know with him, because he's now an adult. What I know is now something that he should probably also know, especially in the business world, work management, and things like that. And finally, it's communication with your spouse. So our spouse might have good intentions. So my husband did not wake me up because he thought I needed the sleep. But what was important for me then was to run. So I communicated with him that, okay, if I'm still asleep by the time you're awake, wake me up, please. And, because I want to run with you. That's for me. So my wish for you is that you start this week with a positive outlook. So have confidence in yourself. If there are areas in your life or in your work where you feel insecure about, just remember the compliments that were given to you before, so that you can remember that you're good at that. If there are areas that being true to yourself, that you really need to improve on, then dedicate time for it. Okay? For me, I need to work on being in touch with the community that I'm managing. I'm managing 2 communities. I'm in touch with one, I'm not in touch with the other. So I've agreed with my client that I'll spend a bit more time learning what the students learn in the academy, so that I know what they're experiencing. Yeah. So that will serve as my professional development. It's my excuse. What I have to learn is Tai Chi. I haven't done Tai Chi since I was in college. So I have to learn Tai Chi. My client is happy to pay me to pay 2 hours of my time so I can learn it every week. And then I have direct access to him to ask him what my practice questions are. So I think that's wonderful. So if you have any areas that you think you need to improve on, please make time for it, whether it's paid or not paid, because in the end you will benefit from it, and you will have very beautiful work out of it. You'll have connection with the people who see your work. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know. Otherwise, I wish you all a very good evening, and I'll see you again next week. Good night.